Welcome to New Life Live, the premier place to receive free advice from Christian psychologists and counselors for the mental, emotional, relational, and spiritual challenges you face. Since 1988, we've offered compassionate responses that combine God's truth with proven psychological principles to guide you toward healing. Our phone lines are open. Call us now at 1-800-229-3000.
Welcome to a very special episode of New Life Live. I'm Brian Perez, anxious to get started, but anxious in the best possible way, of course. Clinical psychologist Dr. Alice Benton is here, and so is licensed professional clinical counselor Becky Brown, who is also the president of New Life Ministries. Becky, why are we so excited about today's show?
Well, we're anxious, like you said. No, I'm just teasing. We have been providing some webinars for the last couple of months, and Alice kicked it off with our From Chaos to Calm webinar, all about the topic of anxiety. We hear all the time in the news, in our school systems, people are on edge. They're experiencing anxiety like never before, and we wanted to spend some time just to understand what that was all about. And at the end of our webinars, we always offer a Q&A section, and we had so many questions about it. We wanted to give some time to answer some of those questions, and we thought, you know what, the listener might want to know, even if they didn't attend the webinar, that they would want to know, what do you do with those anxious feelings? And I think when we think about anxiety, there's a lot of people that have different experiences of anxiety, kind of like what you just said, Brian, that you were anxious to get started. That is a positive experience of anxiety. There's this excitement, there's, just that feeling inside. But anxiety that causes difficulty is that feeling of dread and uneasiness, and this low level kind of awareness that maybe something's going to go wrong, or a sense of restlessness and tension, as well as it can help or have physical manifestations like, shallow breathing, rapid heartbeat, flushing, like, you're really hot or maybe even cold. I think there's so many ways that anxiety shows up, and we just want to understand it so that we can give some direction of how to address it. Alice, you had so much to provide that night, but I think this is going to be a good conversation.
Well, I want to acknowledge the extremes of it too, because anxiety can send people to the emergency room feeling like I'm going crazy, I'm losing control, or I'm having a heart attack. And Becky, I'm hearing that for more teenagers and young adults, which is a population where we see an increase in symptoms of anxiety. And also, it can paralyze you. There have been clients I've had that we had to start off with just phone therapy because they weren't able to leave their home. They weren't able to get in the car and turn on the ignition because they were too afraid to drive, too afraid to go out into public. So we know that anxiety can hamper you from living the life that God has designed and appointed for you. And there are so many ways to get free of the weight of that awful anxiety.
Yeah, Becky. Go ahead, Becky.
What's so amazing about that, it's great to identify those extremes and how slowly people can get into those extremes, right, Alice? It's not like, sometimes you do have a panic attack that just occurs and you have to follow back, like what was I thinking about? What has happened that could cause this disruption inside of me? But sometimes, like in cases of agoraphobia, it's this slow just withdrawal from life until life becomes too much for you to deal with. And that's where that anxiety shows up.
Okay, so we're going to get started with our very special episode on anxiety in just a little bit. You've joined us just in time. In fact, why don't you text or call a friend and let them know about this episode? Let them know how they can hear it right now. If they're in another part of the country, they can just go to our website, newlife.com, or watch it on the New Life Ministries Facebook page or YouTube channel. But we're going to get to as many of these questions as we can, and there are a lot of them, because anxiety, as Becky and Alice just mentioned, is just something that happens to everybody. And then there's that quiet anxiety where people just kind of, they don't even realize they have it. Nobody around them thinks that they have it because they're so cool, calm, and collected. But yeah, they're just as anxious. So we'll be back here on New Life Live.
I went to Every Man's Battle in 2012. My sexual integrity was not what it should have been. I sought out affairs, whether physical or emotional. Until I came to Every Man's Battle, I didn't understand that would never fill that void.
Every day, men struggle with sexual integrity, impure thoughts, strip clubs, affairs, pornography.
The shame and guilt was overwhelming.
For over 20 years, New Life Ministries has been helping men regain their integrity through their one-of-a-kind Every Man's Battle Intensive.
You will discover what the true root of your pain is, and you will discover how to overcome.
You don't have to struggle any longer. Get help in Dallas, Texas, November 7th through the 9th. Call 1-800-NEW-LIFE to register or to find out more. 1-800-639-5433 or online at newlife.com. Enter the code NLL for a discount.
Every Man's Battle saved my life.
1-800-NEW-LIFE and the discount code NLL. To find out more information about New Life or to order any of the resources mentioned on today's program, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Now back to New Life Live.
The anxiety questions are coming right up on New Life Live, but first a reminder that early bird pricing ends today for the Restore Healing After Betrayal workshop for women in Washington, D.C., and the Every Man's Battle Sexual Integrity Intensive in Dallas, Texas. That's for the guys. Both are happening the weekend of November 7th, and it is not too late to get registered, but it's almost too late to get the discount. So sign up today, right now, while it's fresh on your mind at newlife.com or by calling 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Okay, question number one. And Becky, you were talking about the anxiety that people get from just watching the news. Whatever side of the political aisle you're on, there can be anxiety. So how would you guys handle that? Alice?
You know, Alice, I know that you talked all about screen time because even though we're talking about the news, it's all forms of incoming content and media. And I remember years ago having a client who was coming in for anxiety and just doing a little bit of historical check-in, you know, how do you spend your time? You know, what are your interests? And she mentioned that she loves to read mystery novels. And so it's funny because she was feeding her anxiety unknowingly. And so we talked about how even what you read can create those feelings inside. But Alice, let's talk about that screen.
I think we have to identify what is it about the content we're consuming that generates anxiety. So getting really specific about that and then deciding how to limit our intake of it. The Bible warns us about this. It says focus on what is pure and noble, good and true. And if we are ingesting too much information that's alarming, disturbing, overly negative, overly dark, which is often what the news is made up of.
Everything.
That's what sells. That's what gets our attention.
If it bleeds, it leads. That's what they say.
That's right.
And it is the state of our deteriorating world. And the Lord said this would happen. Things would keep getting worse even as he's redeeming behind the scenes. And so deciding how much you need to limit your intake of any material that is too upsetting to you, or to decide which format you can best receive it in without it dysregulating you. And so I've realized that I can't watch the news and not get dysregulated, but I can read it and read it briefly because I do want to stay on top of current events. I want to know what's going on, but I'm an anxious person at heart. That's my default. And so I choose to only read articles and not watch too much of the news. It's just too upsetting. So it's about guarding your eyes in order to guard the state of your heart and then limiting what you consume.
All right. Another question. What type of exercise provides the best results for anxiety? And should it be done for 30 minutes or an hour? How many times per week?
Well, it's interesting because we know that movement in general is helpful for us in so many ways. And that's many reasons why people get anxious is because they can't exert the energy that's building up inside of them. I was just thinking, Alice, of what you just said about, you know, your internal nature tends to be anxious. And I think I want you to share about that. But I'm thinking as far as exercise, walking is very helpful, and it doesn't have to be like regulated, but it's really interesting because if you're anxious at heart, you're going to want to know, how long do I have to do it? How fast do I have to do it? What days do I need to do it? Because there's a control feature that comes in with anxiety. Anxiety is a sense of feeling out of control. And so the more I can lean into the things that I can control, we believe that we would feel calmer. But walking is one of the best ways to exert your energy, to calm down. We say take a walk, take a breath. But there are other forms of exercise that can help too. But I don't want to give a regimen, but I want to say just move it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Alice?
Well, I'd add to that, the exercise you can tolerate is probably going to be the best exercise for you. And so you might have to start very small. And that's okay, because we all have to start somewhere. And if you want to work up to it, the combination of aerobic and anaerobic are what are most helpful overall health, not just anxiety. And so that means this combination of both getting your heart pumping faster by walking, by running, by doing an exercise that makes it a little bit, you have to work harder to breathe, and then weight-bearing exercise. And it provides so many benefits apart from just helping with anxiety. So working up towards that combination. Exercising with other people, doing it in community, it's why we do our workshop. It's why we talk about groups so often, because we do better when we're in community. And having the comfort of both the benefits of exercise while exercising with other people that want to improve in that area, that is such a potent combination. I would say at a minimum, having a 20-minute walk at least 5 days a week. That is a good goal to shoot for. Becky, when my days are tough, I can often be seen walking around the block in between sessions, because I find it to be one of the most calming things for me too. And I look for the signs that God is for me. So for me, it's when I see butterflies, because I think, if butterflies can exist in this world, I know the Creator is still in charge. A friend of mine, for her, it's hummingbirds. For someone else, it's a feather, because she remembers the Bible verse about the Lord will cover you with his feathers. He'll hide you under his wings. So having a symbol like that in creation and getting out into the fresh air, being reminded while you're moving that God is for you, incribly helpful.
Butterflies don't watch the news, so
they might know something we don't.
Yeah.
Take a key. It reminds me though too. What you said though, Alice, is when you think about it, a lot of times when we're anxious, we are not aware that we're anxious. I mean, so many times we'll say to somebody, "Okay, you need to take a breath," and they don't realize that they're holding their breath. Mm-hmm. There are many times anxiety kind of is below the surface, and you don't realize that you're anxious. And the ways that anxiety can show up is random stuff. It can be, if you're highly reactive, like if you have a high reaction to, a door slamming, or, just something surprises you, but it also can be something where anger is your go-to reaction. And I think it's important for us to recognize, how do I know if I'm anxious? Like, how would I know? I mean, obviously, you think that somebody would know, but I think it hides sometimes really well.
It usually does show up more as irritability and, like you said, anger than obvious anxiety. And so if you tend towards anger or irritability, moodiness, check if these other symptoms we're describing today actually fit for you. And you may be surprised to find, it's my anxiety that's fueling my moodiness and irritability. Good point, Becky.
All right, so get out there and move it. And if you're sitting in a chair right now, you can move too, like I am right now. So you can exercise more than you think. All right, here's another question. How do I overcome derealization? It is so scary. First of all, what is derealization? Becky?
Well, I think what they're referring to is disconnecting from reality. Mm-hmm. A lot of times when we feel anxious, it could be called dissociation, where I just am not present. I'm not where my feet are. Our brains are so powerful that it can go way in the future and way in the past and keep us from being right where we are. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Sometimes it is a trauma response where, we can't tolerate what's really happening in front of us. but I think that if this is happening to you, obviously professional help would be the next step. We want you to be able to be where your feet are. I mean, that's, a simple way of saying that, but there are many things that will take us away. It's like what I just said about our brain. Our brain can travel. It time travels, it's way in the back. It could be, we had a caller on a show recently where she was talking about a thing that had happened with her son 50 years ago, 50,
yeah.
and had not resolved it. And that keeps you from being present or being current. And so that's my 2 cents about that. Alice, what would you add?
I'd add that it can also be a confusion about who I am, what my purpose is here, and not feeling at home in your own skin. And it usually comes, as Becky was pointing out, from having been so overwhelmed in a situation or as a pattern in your life that you had to slip away from what you were facing, from the ugliness of your reality. And so to be able to get back to reality, there's something we do called grounding. And it is so simplistic, but incredibly powerful. And grounding is purposefully looking at your environment and identifying things you see and things that you sense. And so when I walk my clients through this, we usually do it as practice when they're calm, so that in moments of derealization or in moments of overwhelming emotion, they can put these skills into practice. And I'll say, look around the room and name 3 colors that you see. Pick an object and describe it to me in detail. Pick the place in the world where you feel the safest and most at home, and describe it to me with all of your senses. What are the sounds you hear when you're there? What do you smell? What do you taste? And getting into your body in a way that you recognize what's happening around you, it gets your mind present. And we can't be thinking about 2 completely different things at the same time. We can jump back and forth in between them. But by making our brain focus on what are the colors around me I've never even noticed before, it changes what we are thinking about, and it keeps you right here in the present. But I'd also say it has to do in a deeper sense with having enough safe support in your life that you can be present with the people around you, because usually this injury comes from people that were unsafe, people that were violent or aggressive or were frightening. And so rebuilding a community of people that you want to be with and can be your real self with helps to figure out who I am and who do I want to be with, and then how can I let my guard down and be real about what's going on inside of me.
Can I add one more thing? To just stress the fact that if you are experiencing this, you will need help. This isn't, because sometimes it can be a neurological disorder where you're seeing things weird or you're experiencing reality in a weird way. We don't want you to, just try to figure it out. But I love the grounding is so important to anxiety in general, whether this is, the main issue. But I love that, Alice. And I also think about breathing. The box breathing that we talk about. And sometimes we just need to, I don't want to minimize this, all of us need to breathe. And we don't practice getting a breath. And so when you think about the anxiety that comes up, even if derealization is not what you're dealing with, if that's not your issue, but you recognize anger or, irritability, taking that big deep breath and then doing some of the grounding can make a big difference in how you respond or react to the situation that you're in.
It's about retraining our brains, because escaping from reality was probably a survival tactic in the past that worked. I actually think it's a beautiful way God has designed our brain, particularly for children who have to experience unimaginable abuse and terror. And physically they can't get away, but mentally they can. So it can work in those kinds of situations. But then as you grow into adulthood and you have to be present for life, you have to train your brain to handle overwhelm, to handle those memories and the stress of life in a different way.
Here's another question that was sent in online. We've all heard of OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. This question, have you heard of ROCD, relationship OCD? You guys heard of that, Becky?
I remember that question, and I don't know that I've heard it described as that, but anything could be. When we talk about OCD or obsessive compulsive disorder, I think back to a teaching that Steve Arterburn did many years ago. And when you think about obsessions, that's in your mind, and you think about compulsions, that is behavior. And so when you think about OCD, it starts with that thought process and then becomes a behavior. An example would be somebody who may have OCD about germs, and then it's washing the hands, it's using paper towels to wipe down everything, it's the hand sanitizer, believing that that is going to eradicate every germ. And in your rational mind, you know that that's not completely possible. Nothing is sterile. I mean, some things are, but not for very long. And so trying to find that relief by action. But we'll talk more about that.
Okay, we will. We're coming up to a break here on New Life Live, a very special edition of the program with Dr. Alice Benton and Becky Brown. It's a lot of questions that we got from our anxiety webinar that we weren't able to answer on our webinar. We're answering them today on New Life Live.
I became aware that my husband had had an affair. He was viewing porn on the computer. I was totally unaware of anything like sex addiction. Through the workshop, I truly believe my soul has been restored. The workshop educated me about what sex addiction was. It also gave me courage. I learned how to stand up for myself. Without a doubt, it was the most significant thing that I did.
The Restore Intensive is coming to Washington, D.C. November 7th to the 9th. Register online at newlife.com or call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Enter the code NLL for a discount.
That workshop is where I found the tools and the people to heal from this most heartbreaking thing of my life.
1-800-NEW-LIFE and the discount code NLL. Club New Life changes lives.
You guys came along into my life in 2022. That was a really, really difficult year of my life.
You can help New Life Ministries provide Christ-centered hope and counseling resources to thousands of people by joining Club New Life today.
I began to really process a lot of things that I've needed to for a long time, and y'all were a very big part of that.
When you sign up to support us monthly through Club New Life, you'll make a difference in the lives of individuals and families with godly counsel and connection to help.
I came out of it having never experienced anything like that, and y'all were there.
Join today and help continue the message of hope to a troubled world.
I knew I had to keep going, and I joined Club New Life, and y'all have been the resource that has now been a light for my wife and I.
Go to newlife.com/CNL, and together we can help hurting people find help and hope in life's hardest places.
Keep doing what you do because it makes a difference.
newlife.com/CNL. To find out more information about New Life or to order any of the resources mentioned on today's program, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Now back to New Life Live.
Brian Perez here with Becky Brown and Dr. Alice Benton. And right this moment, we're talking about ROCD, Relationship Obsessive Compulsive Disorder. Becky, what else were you going to tell us about that?
Well, I was just talking to Alice about this at the break that, when you think about relationship obsessive compulsive disorder, it may not be just like stalking, even though that can be an aspect of it, but it also could be that you're overly concerned and you take many measures to make sure that the person that you're focused on is okay. But I was also talking to Alice about the fact that, with OCD of any type, it can be quite debilitating. When I referred to hand washing before, there's ritualization that goes into OCD as well. It's like, I'm going to check to make sure that I turned off the lights, locked the door, and unplugged the toaster. And if I go out the door and I don't feel like I've done that in a succinct step, I will have to go back and redo that again in order for me to feel calm. It is life-changing, life-altering when people struggle with OCD. And it is born out of anxiety, but it is the belief that if I can control these things, whether it's hand washing or making sure surfaces are clean. And for those of you who don't struggle with this, you're like, why is that? Why? Well, it is clean. It's fine. Don't do that. It's easier to say than to overcome on your own. And so if you're struggling with whether it's ROCD or OCD, there is help, and we would invite you into that process as well.
And we know that OCD is agony, and a person may look very healthy on the outside, but the way the thoughts can circle, spiral, and then a person feels like they have to take action to try to control the thoughts. And we know anxiety usually has a thing that it focuses on, whether that might be safety or spirituality. Am I in good standing with God? Am I still saved? I think I just sinned again. Did I lose my salvation? Mm-hmm. So being relationally focused, I actually think we're more vulnerable to this today because of things like having someone's location at all times, being able to check. There can be great benefits to that. But if you tend more towards anxiety and you find yourself continuously checking, where are they now? What are they doing? Who are they with? And if you can't get away from that line of thinking, you may have too much information. Social media allows us the same thing. Who were you talking with? Which stories did you like? What are you posting? Who are you in relationship with? I've worked with families where there was a requirement for a spouse to continually be on a FaceTime call so that they could see what their partner was doing at all times. It's a level of trying to control for the sake of believing you're keeping things safe, believing you're keeping things together. And it usually comes out of injury, as we've been pointing out. It's understandable if we can find out the roots and the story of why this started. But there's also a chemical issue to OCD and to anxiety disorders in general. There's a chemical imbalance in the brain when we have so much anxiety that impairs our ability to function in relationships, as we're talking about, or in other areas of life.
You know, Alice brings up a good point, though. Your book on understanding and loving your child in a screen-saturated world, with your research on that, recognizing, yes, Brian's holding it up, but recognizing that we don't always realize the insidiousness of how all of those bings, the little notifications, how they're starting to affect us from an anxious standpoint. There was a day, and I remember it, when you left the house and the phone stayed attached to the wall inside of the house. And you could be gone for literally hours and no one would ever know where you were or what you were doing. You come back and you're alive. And somebody would have to, call you at a certain time. But what we didn't recognize is the freedom that came with that. And I'm not talking from a bad standpoint. I'm just talking from, I don't need to be accessible all the time. And what we've done over time, everything from baby monitors to, like you said, find your friends, all of those things on some level, oh, sure, it's fine. But it's just like it is a dopamine hit that you don't recognize is going to be insatiable over time. And can I just say this? A lot of times people don't recognize that their addictions to alcohol, drugs, is because they're trying to escape the anxiety that they're feeling about relationships or work or things like that. But man, we've got watches that tell us when we're supposed to be somewhere. We've got phones that are dinging all the time that we feel like we have to answer them just because they're ringing. And we can learn to have control over that.
We weren't designed to be omniscient, to be all-knowing. Only God can handle being all-knowing. But we can approximate being all-knowing with the information that's at our fingertips. Yes. As I've considered, when my children drive, for instance, will I have their location? Will I want to access that? Honestly, I think I'm too anxious of a person, and I would probably obsessively check it. I even feel for my kids that we can check their grades as often as we do. My parents didn't know my grades until the end of the semester, and it puts,
thank goodness.
Yeah, it puts too much of a burden of having too much information and not enough power to do enough about all of it. And I think that's why God wants us to save us from knowing too much. So if you're overly anxious, are you allowing yourself to have too much access to too much information about the people in your lives? You might want to back off.
I think so. We were talking about years ago when the phones were hooked up at the house, and then they invented the answering machine. So I think from then it kind of went downhill, because the answering machine, you'd get home from work and you notice, what? I have 3 messages, and then that is now portable with voicemail and email, text messaging, everything else, and we just need a break. All these things that we're supposed to make our life easier have not made it easier. Well, in some ways. But anyway, we'll be back with more about anxiety on New Life Live.
I was sort of vaguely familiar that the 12 steps had some origination in the Bible. I found Life Recovery, and one of the things I liked so much was that it had such a broad appeal. It wasn't limited to just alcohol or drugs, that it was addressing a wide range of problems.
At New Life, we believe everyone can benefit from a life recovery experience. There are life recovery groups all over the country. They take place online, in conference calls, and in person. And if there isn't one in your area, we can help you start one. We have startup materials, leaders' guides, CDs, Bibles, and more, all with discounts available for groups. Call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE and ask for Terry Ward. The 12 Steps have long been a great help to people in recovery because much of the 12 Steps' power comes from the fact that they capture principles clearly revealed in the Bible.
The 12 steps is really a pattern for all of us as Christians.
Call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. That's 1-800-639-5433. Do you need help for life's hard situations?
My husband recently said he wanted a divorce.
I'm confused on what I should do.
I have an eating disorder.
New Life Live answers your questions on relationships, grief, addiction, trauma, anxiety, and much more, all from a biblical perspective with our panel of professional counselors and psychologists.
I learn a lot from your program.
You help so many people.
I appreciate your ministry.
Whether you listen or watch, there are so many ways to connect with us to ask our panel of counselors a question. Call us Monday through Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific at 1-800-229-3000 to ask your question on New Life Live. Or go to newlife.com/radio for other ways to get your question answered.
I'm trying to find help.
I just want to know how to set boundaries.
If it's a sin, what am I supposed to do?
Need a therapist or a coach, a resource, or an intensive? Call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE. That's 1-800-639-5433. 1-800-NEW-LIFE. To find out more information about New Life or to order any of the resources mentioned on today's program, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Now back to New Life Live.
In case you've just joined us, you're listening to a special edition of New Life Live. About 2 months ago, Dr. Alice Benton here presented a webinar titled From Chaos to Calm. And you guys sent in so many good questions that we decided to just dedicate a whole show to try and answer as many as possible. More of them are coming up, but first I want to let you know about 2 other webinars coming up before year's end. The Coping with Loss Grief webinar is on Thursday, November 13th at 7 p.m. Central Time. And then we've got the Healthy Holidays Boundaries webinar on Wednesday, December 10th. That one's also at 7 p.m. Central Time. Each one is less than $20 per person. And if you want to attend but are going to be busy with holiday prep or holiday parties, register anyway, because shortly after the live webinar, we'll send you a replay link that's good for a few days, allowing you to watch when you can. Call 1-800-NEW-LIFE for details about that. And to register or learn more, go to newlife.com. All right, here's another question that was sent in online on that during that webinar. I have a brother who causes a lot of anxiety with his needs. I'm so drained every time he calls that I don't want to pick up the call. There's much fear that leaks out from his interaction. So I can picture this person here. We're talking about telephones, right? All of a sudden the phone rings and it's just like, oh no, not again. What do you do in that situation?
I would say that this is a boundaries-related question. And anxiety in its healthiest form is a radar pinging that there's danger or a problem or an unresolved issue. And if we can look at anxiety as a helpful system alerting us to something that needs our attention, that's what I think God actually designed it to do, then we can take action to solve the problem. So if we have a problematic person in our lives that always brings us too much stress, the good radar is saying, I have to limit how much I'm exposed to this person. I cannot handle this much negativity. I find that if people are mostly in a complainer mode. I have limited patience for complaints, especially if folks don't want to do anything to change it. We call it a help-rejecting complainer. I want to complain to you, but I don't want to do anything about it, and I don't want you to tell me anything about it. So I have to limit how much I hear that form of complaining. So sometimes I say at the beginning of one of those conversations, I've got 5 more minutes that I can be your listener on this topic, and then I either have to switch us to something else, or I have to go and do something else. So I protect my limited resources. We all have limited energy, and there can be very draining people in our life that take from us when we interact with them, as opposed to life-giving people that we feel filled up by, energized by, sort of a renewed desire for life after we're with these life-giving people. And it's important to limit our exposure to the very draining people. So for this sister, I would recommend things like limiting the time you talk and spreading out how often you are willing to answer that call. Because it is okay, important, even essential to take care of the limited energy that you have to interact with this brother. But then also you might offer him a resource. You might send him one of our New Life books, something that addresses the chaos that he himself is struggling with that leaks out onto you when he calls.
Yeah. Becky?
I think this goes back to what I said about we could leave the house and not answer the call. I mean, that's what she's talking about, but that's what caller ID is for. But we are compelled to answer, and we don't have to be. We can decide what notifications we pay attention to. Now, I know I'm just talking about a phone call here, but there are some people in our lives, like Alice is describing, that are a lot. And so if it's somebody that you know that you're going to interact with regularly in this situation, it's a brother. But I've also talked with people who it's a troubled marriage. And so it could be the ex-spouse that, is taunting or something like that. Your voicemail is a very powerful boundary, and you can decide when you are going to respond. Many times we are compelled to respond to whatever the notification is. And sometimes it's a person, and sometimes it's a phone call or a beep or something like that, a text even. You can put off those notifications and then get into a frame of mind when you can respond. There's, the other part of this too is we can't just create a bubble that we live in where nobody's going to bother us. I think that's the other extreme of anxiety, right? We want to withdraw. But when we're in relationship with people, we're going to experience their anxiety as well. And so I think about the serenity prayer, and I think about recovery, and I think about, just the fact, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. Or another version I say is, God grant me to accept the people that I cannot change the one I can, and the wisdom to know it's me. and so when we have somebody who is a lot, what am I doing to create that strong core of peace within me so that I can have loving detachment and I can have an impact, but I also can not have a dread? How can I love people from a distance, or how I can be in relationship even though I know that it may be a lot from time to time? And it's the best way to calm that inside as opposed to being irritated all the time.
It might also be a spiritual nudge to give feedback to the person that's a lot, because they may not know it. And God designed us in community to be able to point out each other's blind spots. So to lovingly say, I care about you, I want to talk with you on the phone. You complain sometimes more than I can handle. Do you know that about yourself? And are you willing to be more cautious? Can I even have permission to point out when I'm starting to get overwhelmed? Would you stop complaining, or can we bring this phone call to a close? Your brother may need to hear that from you, and you might be the most loving person to give him that tough truth in a gentle way.
And I got one more question that you can ask. You can say, how can I help you the best today? When you get somebody who wants to call and tell you all the things, how can I help you the best today? And then you can decide from there.
I like that. Here's another question, similar topic. This person says, I really want to be alone. I feel at peace and enjoy it when I don't have to be around people. I have difficulty understanding why. having a group of people is supposed to be helpful? Is it because I feel like the people in my life always need something from me?
I could have written that question. I can relate.
This does look like your
confession
handwriting.
time with Alice.
Yes.
I would say that some of us are just God designed to be introverts. It's more of our nature that we like quiet, we like downtime, we might like focusing on projects. It doesn't mean we have the green light to withdraw from society, but knowing your personality style, knowing how you're designed, just your nature, it helps us to have grace for ourselves. So for me, it helps me to know before most parties, I'm not going to feel like going. And I might even try to wiggle my way out of them because I am more comfortable by myself. But when I have the courage to go, I almost always enjoy it, and I'm glad I went afterwards. But then I also need to balance out afterwards. I'm probably going to need to be alone for a little while because I'll be a better wife and mom after I get my alone time and I'm refreshed and I come back to people again. So it's knowing what fuels you and what uses up your fuel and working well with that. God probably has some quiet tasks for us introverts to do, but he also wants us to build up our tolerance to face society and engage with people.
So if you ever get a call from Alice that says, hey, guess what? I want to have a party today. Can we just do it? Because it may not happen again for a long time. That's what I'm hearing.
Very true.
Becky?
You know, many times you hear us talk about attachment styles, and this person may appear to be an avoider. And avoiders are not always introverts. We always make that clear. But in this situation, what the question where they say, is it because I feel like the people in my life are always needing something from me? JJ pointed out something at this last Intimacy in Marriage, that sometimes avoiders will act like a pleaser because once they get you away from them, then they can be back to themselves again. And I thought that is such a great picture because it's true, right, Alice? It's like if you're an avoider, or even the description that you just gave of an introvert, it's a lot if you think that you're responsible for other people's needs to be met. Mm-hmm. And sometimes as pleasers, we are thinking, if you're happy, I'm happy, and then that's a way for me to control my environment. So it makes sense if you don't want to be in groups of people, if you unknowingly have this internal dialogue of, in order for them to be or in order for me to be happy, they need to be happy. And that is rooted in childhood experiences. We talk about this all the time on the show, but also Mylan and Kay Yurkovich outline this thoroughly in How We Love. Recognizing that your need to be alone may be rooted in your need to please can be very powerful and really helpful in making really deep connections with people who you don't have to please.
And learning how to say no. That just because someone asks something of me, and even if I don't have a good excuse of why I'm saying no, but if my heart's not in it, if I can't give generously and freely, if I can't be a cheerful giver, then it might be good to say, let me think about that, or I'm going to have to say a no on this one. That is okay, but it's tough for us people pleasers and for introverts and avoiders to learn how to do.
Because they come back with, why not? We'll be back.
Club New Life changes lives.
I think I go way back to listening to New Life, learning so much from it, and then becoming a Club New Life member.
Club New Life is a monthly giving family that helps New Life Ministries provide Christ-centered hope and counseling resources to thousands of people.
You know, I'm so thankful because you know why I keep giving? Because I keep learning, and I'm so thankful for all the lives that you touch every day and the people's lives. So when I get to still hear the radio show, it's just so encouraging to my heart.
When you sign up to support us monthly through Club New Life, you'll make a difference in the lives of individuals and families with godly counsel and connection to help.
And you know one reason I give? Because I feel like sometimes I'm hiding behind a counselor's couch listening to all this great information and not paying. So my guilt of this great advice is alleviated by being a Club New Life member.
Call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. That's 1-800-639-5433. And together we can help hurting people find help and hope in life's hardest places. Call 1-800-639-5433 to join Club New Life today. For over 35 years, New Life has been the most trusted name in Christian counseling.
Your ministry has saved my life.
If you struggle with emotional hurt, family or marriage problems, the pit of depression, or the pain of addiction, we can help.
I'm down 100 pounds now from what I was.
I found a counselor through New Life Ministries, and it's just been outstanding.
Our treatment programs provide clinically appropriate solutions from licensed professionals, all in a biblical framework.
I have had problems with alcohol. I think God has ordained this place to be His.
You don't have to be a prisoner of your pain. Help is available at 1-800-NEW-LIFE.
She tells me that I'm a new man, and I feel like a new man.
It worked for me, and it can work for them too.
This time it is different.
If you're ready to take the first steps toward genuine spiritual and emotional healing, call us today at 1-800-NEW-LIFE. God can open the door for a better tomorrow.
To get someone that's competent, that's good at what they do, it's been like day and night compared to what I've had before.
Call 1-800-639-5433. To find out more information about New Life or to order any of the resources mentioned on today's program, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Now back to New Life Live.
The president would like a moment with you. Becky Brown, president of New Life Ministries. Why don't you tell our viewers and listeners about this amazing matching gift that we've got going on right now?
I am so grateful for the generous hearts of people who believe in the ministry of New Life. And we had a group who said, we want to invest in what God is doing through New Life. And they began with a seed of $475,000 and are inviting you to be part of a matching gift. Imagine the new lives that will come next year, next month, as we continue to reach out through the radio program, through our intensives, through our counselor and coaching network, and our webinars. New Life is boots on the ground. There are many teaching and talk ministries, and we love all of that. But who do you go to when you need to find a counselor, when you need to do some deeper work in a workshop? That's New Life. That's where we are. And God's been using the ministry for over 36 years, and we plan to be present for what He's going to do in the next generation. And we want to invite you, if you've been impacted by New Life, if you listen on a regular basis, will you be part of this match and be part of what God is doing? Brian, tell them how they can give.
They can call 1-800-NEW-LIFE or go directly to newlife.com/match. And thank you for whatever you can do. It's going to be matched up to $475,000. All right, here's another question from our anxiety webinar. I've had insomnia since I was 19 years old.
Oof.
When I ask people for prayer, I'm always asked if I'm anxious. I always say no because I don't think I do. How do I know if this is because of anxiety?
It is true that insomnia can be a part of other mental health disorders, so it's not necessarily connected with anxiety. But as we've been pointing out, we're not always aware that we are anxious because it can be covered by another emotion. So as you wonder what your insomnia is related to, we always recommend having a full medical exam. And I don't know how old you are, but you've been experiencing this since you were 19 years old. That's a lifetime of awful suffering. Insomnia is so detrimental. It can really deteriorate not only mood, but cognitive abilities and your body's ability to recover. So insomnia can be a part of depression. And depression and anxiety are often comorbid, meaning they occur together. And so the symptoms get mixed up. It can be difficult to determine what is causing this symptom. But as I said, getting a medical exam helps to clear out, is this an organic problem, a physical issue, even a neurological issue that's resulting in insomnia? Is it depression? Are there things your body is going through like low motivation? You're struggling with appetite. You don't feel like living life anymore. You're not interested in things you used to be. There aren't things that you enjoy that you used to enjoy. Those are signs of depression. And anxiety tends to be a cluster of symptoms of worrying about the future, difficulty controlling the worry, having the physical symptoms we've been talking about throughout the show, trembling, fast heart rate, sweating, trembling in the extremities, feelings of panic. All of these are a cluster of anxiety symptoms. And so what would probably be most helpful to determine where your insomnia is coming from is to not only see a medical doctor, but also to talk with a psychologist or psychiatrist who would go through an in-depth questionnaire of what I'm asking, but also the other disorders that can include insomnia in them, so that you can get a better label, a better diagnosis, which then helps you to determine what treatment you most need for this.
Becky?
You know, it's interesting. In the question, they identified the age that it started, and then they participated in a webinar from Chaos to Calm about anxiety, and they're asked about anxiety. So there's a thread here. My question would be, what happened at 19? And if you're with a professional, like you just mentioned, Alice, psychiatrist, counselor, whatever, they're going to start with what happened at 19. What was the shift? Where did this begin? But also the relationships that you are around since 19, because that low-level stress, and you're so right on, Alice, we've got to figure out where the insomnia is coming from, because it may not be that the insomnia is caused by the anxiety, but the insomnia is definitely causing anxiety. Did I say that right?
Yep, you did.
You know, but we just got to do an assessment. And I would say, don't wait another day. Get a call. You can call us. We'll get you connected with somebody who can begin this process.
For sure. All right. Let's see. Can we squeeze in at least one more? This one, some foods make me more anxious. Does this make sense? Asks the person. Food.
I think it definitely does, because we know that foods affect overall well-being, but they also affect mood. And a cleaner diet that has less of the processed food, less of the junk that tastes so good but doesn't work well for our brain and our body, also impact mood. I'll go to one of the worst perpetrators of this, caffeine. Caffeine, I love the energy boost that it gives me, but it also causes anxiety, can exacerbate anxiety. And so knowing how much you need to limit your caffeine intake, or at what time of night to stop consuming caffeine so that it doesn't disrupt your sleep. We were just talking about sleep. Even something that simple, but not easy to do, affects anxiety and can impact mood. And so we know that the God-given food, the food that He created for us and that He designed our bodies to intake and digest, that is what will fuel us best in all ways. And processed food, fun to eat, but it does not fuel us well.
So we hear the term comfort food a lot, and most people don't equate broccoli with comfort food. I'm sure there's some people out there, but so Becky, how do we, it's usually the cookies and the crackers that we reach for, not the apples and bananas. What would you say?
Well, actually, to add to the caffeine, although, God created cocoa beans and coffee beans. So, we could do it. I'm holding my ground for the caffeine. But, the other one is sugar, which is also natural, but it is, we talk about that with kids, right? You don't want to have them have too many, things with sugar in them, because it does change our mood. And to your point, Brian, there are comfort foods, when we think about, how we are not medically, but treating ourselves with food. And so just recognizing how you are impacted by the things that you take in. And that can be food, it can be drug, it can be drink, whatever that is. And recognizing, is this how I really want to feel? Because that, at the end of the day, that's really what you want to pay attention to, is, not what you're putting in, but what is coming out because of what you're putting in.
The core of what we talked about in our webinar was how to access the right kind of comfort. And I don't think there's a problem at all with being comforted by something delicious. My daughter was just saying the other day, I love the comfort of going on screen and watching a cartoon. That's fine. We need to have surface level comforts. But the true deeper comfort that, again, God seems to have prepared us for, the ones that will work best, are being in right relationship with Him. How's my conscience? How much am I living by by God's will, because when I'm out of alignment, the radar goes off, the anxiety goes off. That's a good sign to draw us back to right our relationship with God. And then human comfort. Because we can't hear God, we can't see him most of the time. He sent other people to us, God with skin on, other human beings who are to be his hands and feet. And that's where we should be going for comfort.
Thank you for joining us for this special episode of New Life Live. No doubt you know someone struggling with anxiety. Tell them about this episode. We're going to archive it on YouTube and at newlife.com. It'll also be available as a podcast. So share it with the people you love who always seem anxious about stuff. And even the people you love who don't seem anxious, the ones that seem like they got it all together. No, they need to hear this program as well or watch it. God bless you guys. We'll talk to you Monday on New Life Live.
Thanks for listening. We hope this program has helped you by giving you insights for handling the challenges you face in your life. We want you to know that we're here for you, but you also need to know that New Life Live is a listener-supported ministry. To make your donation or to get any of the resources mentioned on today's program, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. That's 1-800-639-5433 or online at newlife.com. Please join us again tomorrow for New Life Live.